Our next speaker is Dr. Lin Pettersson. She's lecturer in English literature at the University of Málaga. She has research interests in contemporary women's literature and neo-Victorian fiction, the long 19th century, and the world of spectacle, with a specific focus on space, gender, and the body. She's co-editor of Reading the Trace and the Modern and Contemporary Fiction, and has published on gender performance, lesbian identities, and silence in the fiction of Sarah Waters and Emma Donoghue, as well as the freak show and femininity in neo-Victorian. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours, Lynn.
Thank you. So first of all, allow me to extend my gratitude to the organizers, a wonderful conference, and especially to the València team for turning this into our second home. I'm going to speak about the neo-Victorian world of spectacle, and my paper is titled Restaging Femininities on the Neo-Victorian Popular Stage. Now, is it? How should I? Sorry. All right. So, 19th century popular entertainment has become an integral part of neo-Victorian fiction and offers strong contemporary readers' understanding as well as expectations of the Victorians' own taste for leisure and amusement. Settings ranging from music halls and variety theatres to the circus, freak show, and fairground exhibitions have become a standard feature of the neo-Victorian imagination. And the popular entertainment has especially proved a fruitful ground for authors to explore issues as space, gender, and the body. Fact is, the main body of literature has been written by women writers, and the combination of stages, spectacles, and performance predominantly place the female body in focus. So I'm currently carrying out a systematic review of the Victorian world of entertainment and literature, and I have built a corpus of 33 titles and also added 5 young adult fiction to this lately. And no less than 28 of these titles have been written by women authors, which is nearly 80%. And I'm particularly interested in the ways in which the Victorian world of spectacle has become a forum of feminist debate for contemporary women writers who situate the female body at the heart of the narrative. In line with the scope of this conference, Women's Staging and Restaging 19th Century, I will briefly outline how femininities are restaged on the neo-Victorian popular stage. So my paper is going to be very descriptive. But I hope that the panoramic overview of neo-Victorian entertainment fiction will provide insights into the principal aesthetic forms and main tropes. Finally, I will bring the discussion up to the present, examining the most recent novel, The Fascinations by S.A. Fox. So moving back in time, Angela Carter's Night at the Circus is undoubtedly a point of departure for neo-Victorian fascination with 19th century popular entertainment. This novel about the winged aerialist Sophie Feathers, the freak and circus star at the turn of the 19th century, or on the threshold to, and I quote from the novel, a new age when no women will be bound to the ground, has inspired many authors to recur to Victorian popular stages to explore femininity and gender issues. As our sketch has noticed, Carter's concern for how gender identity are or might be constructed textually, historically, and performatively come to the fore in the novel, and storytelling strategies and politics are deployed to enact a liberation of sorts from categorizing and specular desires of men. In view of the aesthetic considerations, Carter's quaint admixture of postmodern pastiche, metafictional playfulness, intertextuality, performativity, and Gothic imagery has foregrounded the aesthetics of neo-Victorian entertainment literature to a large extent. Performativity and the Gothic have become neo-Victorian mastertropes and neatly fit the neo-Victorian drive to revise and reimagine and recreate the past. Marie-Louise Kolk and Kristen Gutleven argue that neo-Victorianism is by nature quintessentially Gothic, resurrecting the ghost of the past and searching out its dark secrets, shameful mysteries, insisting obsessively on the lurid details of Victorian life, reliving the period's nightmares and traumas. As I hope to convince you today, performative and Gothic tropes have also become central to Victorian entertainment fiction, especially those novels concerned with femininity. Now, authors and feminist scholars have jumped at the opportunity to explore past and present gender issues by letting 20th and 21st century theories bear on Victorian performance culture. In the aftermath of Judith Butler's Gender Trouble, published 1990, and the emergence of queer theory, several authors turned to the London Music Hall to explore the constructed, fluid, and transferable features of gender for the trope of performativity. Writers as Peter Ackroyd, Anne Featherstone, and Sarah Waters turned the music hall into a forum of gender debate and used cross-dressing to integrate gender issues in particular. And Jana here will speak about Tipping the Velvet and Dan Leno and the Limehouse Golem later. And Akira will also speak about adaptations of Tipping the Velvet, so I'm not going to go much into detail here. But these novels are significant as they are part of a new literary trend that is neo-Victorianism, and also mark the beginning of neo-Victorian entertainment literature as a subgenre in its own right. Tipping the Velvet follows a picaresque heroine's career in a music hall and lures the reader into a lesbian underground cultures in Victorian London. And Waters, who shares Carter's feminist concern, rely on a Gothicized imagery to portray female entrapment as the heroines find themselves immersed in hazardous situations where performative titillation and erotic playfulness turn into dangerous games with pornographic undertones that nearly destroy them. Gothic imagery is used to expose blatant and vicious sexual behavior, pornography, and among the privileged classes especially, and women working on the popular stage often fall victims of abusive men, as well as women in powerful positions, as for example, Madame Schreck's Museum of Female Monsters in Knights of the Circus described as catering to the most secret and perverted of male appetites, these stark and fearful appetites of those who are rich and seem powerful in the world, according to Skeets. Or the dominant Diana and her secret Sapphic society in Tipping the Velvet, who exploit men sexually. So from the 2000 onwards, authors have shown concern for freak performers, and many biofictions are commemorative acts aimed at unionizing people who were exploited on grounds of physical difference. As a result, stronger focus was placed on the body and the performative nature of freak identities. Hence, the body was brought into this gender space discourse. The amount of literature and scholarship on neo-Victorian freakery is rich, and freak studies has gained strong foothold in neo-Victorianism. Scholars such as Anne Haleman, Helen Davies have scrutinized how sex, gender, and race intersect on the body of female freaks in particular, as they become victims of the disciplinary powers controlled by men as medicine, science, or business, or become objects of what Kolk terms sexploitation. Sexual victimization and deviancy in the neo-Victorian freak show have been examined in detail by Helen Davies in Neo-Victorian Freakery, published in 2015, and also by Severio Tomayulo in Neo-Victorian Deviance, published 2018. Tomayulo points out that the following: the Neo-Victorian project is much more than an uncensored version of Victorian culture, because it's satisfying certain interest in the unknown or lesser known aspects of Victorianism. It proves that by rewriting the lives and vicissitudes of our ancestors, it is possible to rediscover ourselves and to acknowledge at the same time that the seeds of many of our anxieties and issues were planted in the 19th century. In this regard, Victorian bias and objectification of the female body become a vehicle for contemporary feminist debates. The popular stage is used to subvert patriarchal restrictions, and albeit female performers have to confront moral and physical attacks, they are often depicted as strong and powerful. In the last decades, there have been a varied but continuous affluence of novels set in the Victorian world of spectacle, and I have found a growing tendency among these writers to combine and blend different performance spaces, acts, and roles in the representation of female characters. The female body is often a focal point in the majority of these novels, and in recent years, the female aerial performer has incremented significantly in neo-Victorian entertainment fiction, and often makes echo of Carter's heroine. Authors use tropes of performativity to restage Victorian femininity as women performers defy patriarchal restraints on stage, experience power, and gain voice in the public sphere. Yet these female characters face sexual harassment and are too often victims of bodily exploitation. For example, the main character of Elizabeth McNeil's Circus of Wonders, published in 2021, is a freak aerial performer who is raped by the circus manager, who turns her into a circus star. Yet she decides to keep this a secret because of fear of victim blaming, which mirrors the 21st century Me Too movement and recent trends in consciousness raising. Women have taken a step to break prolonged silences regarding sexual harassment and exposing rape culture, especially in contemporary entertainment industry. So moving on to the second part of my paper today, I want to bring the discussion of the Victorian entertainment up to the present by speaking about S.E. Fox's novel, The Fascination. S.E. Fox has published 5 novels to date, and The Fascination was published in July this year. Her novels testify to a prolonged interest in the Victorian popular entertainment, fairy tales, and the Gothic, as well as performance, doubling, and dark obsession are recurrent themes in her fiction. The Fascination builds on 2 narrative strands that weave together the fates of 2 gypsy traveler sisters, Keisha and Tilly Lovell, with the story of Theo, an anatomy assistant and bastard grandson to the sinister Lord Seabrook. The dual plotline unfolds within the context of the Victorian fairgrounds, dueling pantomimes, and an anatomy museum in London, which are all oddly connected to the secret society of the Bacchanalians, which is run by Lord and Lady Seabrook. The novel has been described as a dark kaleidoscope of a novel by the author herself, which is reflected in the text as the story alters regularly between Keisha's first-person narrative and the third-person omniscient narrator. These storylines are disrupted by fragments from fairy tales, song lyrics, articles, and advertisements, so the text itself is also highly experimental. Fox has insisted repeatedly that the main concern is our acceptance of people who are different in the novel's acknowledgement, and she affirms that the essence of this book is about love and acceptance for people who are different. Neo-Victorian uses of the Gothic trope lends itself to an aesthetic experimentation of doubling and othering of Victorian legacies, and I will approach The Fascination as a neo-Victorian novel of entertainment, and I want to see how Fox combines these tropes of performativity and the Gothic. So the main plot, as mentioned, focuses on the twin sisters Keisha and Tilly, who are brought up by their alcoholic father, and their mother passed away due to complications during the childbirth of their third child. They grow up in the family wardo or wagon, and they tour fairgrounds where the father makes profit from his daughter's peculiarities. The twin sisters are identical, except from the fact that Tilly stopped growing, but not aging, at the age of 5, resulting in a miniature version of her sister Keisha. The story is told in the first person by Keisha, giving voice to her, but not to Tilly. And she describes how the father exhibits them at fairgrounds, using them as stage props to sell his miracle elixir. Being in a constant need of money to pay for his heavy drinking, as well as accumulated debts, he sells his daughters to a freakmonger called Captain, who takes them to London. This is an unexpected and surprising change for the better, as Captain turns out to be of a much better and kinder nature than their father, especially for Tilly, who turns from freak and medical wonder to actress and pantomime star. However, the audience fascination with her small size until its own thirst for fame grew darker and darker, leading the actress into a vicious circle of vice that nearly cost her her life. Tilly becomes a star in the role as the queen of all fairies in a Christmas pantomime at the Theatre Royal on Drury Lane. And the audience is spellbound by her act and miniature body adorned with swan wings. The fairy queen begins to sing. She has the most exquisite voice, and as the note dissolves and melts into the air, she rises up on snow-white wings, swan wings from Summerwells. She is flying even higher and even wider circles above the sea of all faces staring upwards in amazement. She is gliding through the air and looks as if she's an angel, and from this angel comes the blessing of a single pure white feather. Fox combines Victorian ideal of angelic womanhood and the literary bird imagery representing female entrapment, liberation. As mentioned before, flying actresses feature prominently in neo-Victorian entertainment literature, and the audience fascination with the aerial performer who wears swan wings attached to the back clearly echoes Nights at the Circus. In this regard, Fox rather meets readers' expectations of 19th century ideals of femininity and replicate former neo-Victorian aerial characters than restaging something different. Moreover, Tilly is blinded by her fame and places herself in a morally compromised position as she agrees to attend a private after-party arranged by the Seabrooks. And Fox here evokes the overgeneralized prejudice that equals the actress to a prostitute, saying, all our Miss Tilly has to do is smile and sing as sweet as sugar, perhaps a bit of slap and tickle to amuse the wealthy gents who have a liking for a freak. Don't knock the trade, it's lucrative as many West End showgirls find, appealing to gents and predisposed to buy themselves a more unique experience. In Vice and the Victorians, Mike Huggins describes pornography as a key part of the expanding network of sexual discourse and consumer culture. And Fox explored this entangled world of spectacle, anatomy museums, and secret societies in fascination. Dr. Summerwell's Anatomy Museum is based on Dr. Joseph Kahn's Anatomical and Pathological Museum, and the Secret Society of the Bacchanalians, led by Lord Seabrook, is inspired by the real Hellfire Club at Wycombe and their secret grotto. Kahn's museum was open to the public, who could behold anatomical models, specimens, and pictures meant to instruct the visitors in the human body and health, dangers of venereal diseases, smoking, etc. But could also visitors could also buy quack remedies for venereal diseases there. Kahn's museum became, like the London Music Hall, a target of the anti-vice campaigners, and it closed after the Obscene Publications Acts of 1857, which branded all public display of anatomical specimens as potentially obscene. The fascination surpasses Victorian censorship on obscenity, pornography, and prostitution, including intertextual references to John Cleland's Fanny Hill Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure, and discloses the erotic subtext of bodily spectacle that represents what Mike Huggins calls for the embodied fantasies about the perfect female sexual temptation and men's desire for and control of women. Dr. Summerwell's Anatomy Museum in the novel provides Lord Seabrook's secret society with anatomical collectibles as evolved freaks and fabricated models of mermaids, lycanthropes, etc. are added to the private midnight garden of delights. The Bacchanalians takes their name from the Roman Bacchanalias, which were popular festivals that celebrated Bacchus and the cult of Liber. They were surrounded by a cult of mystery and included ecstatic rites based on mythology and religion. And Lord Seabrook's home is the venue of secret gatherings and private parties of of erotic excess and macabre desire for the grotesque. To this end, Tilly, the midget fairy queen, is meant to be the latest addition to the mausoleum of freak. The female freakish body is conveyed as a commodity, an object of desire for the grotesque, presenting an example of what Rosie Braidotti calls displaced sexual curiosity. Braidotti further calls attention to the notion of racialization of the monstrous other, arguing that the persistence of the racial and racist overtones in teratology discourses intersect with the continuous emphasis on controlling and disciplining the woman's body. Fox's choice of giving the Lowell sister a gypsy and traveler ethnicity offers the possibility to explore both genderized and radical narratives. However, Fox's novel is flawed in the sense that her portrayal of gypsy traveler ethnicity is overtly stereotyped. The father is stealing, lying, and a drinking conman who exploits his children and even sells them. Their mother was a gypsy fortune teller, and there are many references to dark features alluding to negative traits, as for instance, Tilly's teeth are tinted black by drug addiction. And when Keisha poisons Lady Seabrook and sets fire to the freak mausoleum to save her sister, her rage and thirst for revenge is linked to her gypsy traveler heritage. And she says, I also feared what I'd become if I allowed the dark side of my blood take control. Obviously, Fox incorporates stereotypes, representation, and romantic ideals of gypsies, which I believe is indebted to her background reading when writing this novel, and she includes titles as Gypsy Witchcraft and Magic, published in 1998, and Gypsy Magic, published in 2001, in the bibliography to her novel. Her failure to explore the persistent racism against Gypsy traveler and Roma community is, in my opinion, a throwback. According to recent statistics in Britain, carried out by Evidence for Equality and National Service, Evans, this ethnic minority remains by far the most discriminated group, not only in Britain, but across Europe. On her blog, The Virtual Victorian, she states, it's a book that became very important to me, being about finding acceptance in the world where anyone different is at risk of scorn or abuse or used for entertainment purposes. While the fascination successfully denounces scorn and abuse of the physical or different and employed the Gothic trope to criticize abuse of power over the female body, the novel ironically represents gypsy traveler women in a stereotyped way for entertainment purposes. So just a few remarks of conclusion. Neo-Victorian entertainment novels are sustained both by Victorian and Neo-Victorian intertextuality, and although tropes of performativity in Gothic are successfully consciousness raising in the treatment of gender and the body, we must still be cautious, approaching the Victorian from a morally superior and informed manner, admitting our own flaws, interiorized prejudices, and complicity in restaging the past. Thank you.